Sentinel Hills Medical Center, renowned for its prestigious reputation in an upscale suburban neighborhood, was about to confront an unforeseen challenge. When Maya Daniels, a highly skilled and compassionate black nurse, joined their staff, she was unaware of the deep-rooted biases she would face. As tensions rose, a seemingly unremarkable patient named Richard Maxwell lay quietly in his hospital bed, observing the events around him. But Richard was no ordinary patient, and his presence would soon upend everything. What mysterious influence did this patient hold, and how could one nurse's struggle ignite an institutional transformation? Let's explore Maya's journey. The immaculate corridors of Sentinel Hills Medical Center sparkled under the bright fluorescent lights as Maya Daniels took her first steps inside. The sterile scent of disinfectant filled the air, but an undercurrent of tension made Maya's stomach churn. Despite the unease, Maya stood tall, determined to make a strong first impression as she embarked on her new role. Approaching the nurses' station, Maya noticed how conversations abruptly quieted as she neared. Whispers replaced the once casual discussions, and eyes darted away from her, avoiding contact. She swallowed her anxiety, pushing aside the isolation that was beginning to settle over her. "Excuse me," Maya said, her voice steady. "I'm Maya Daniels, the new nurse. Could you point me to the head nurse's office?" A blonde nurse glanced up, her blue eyes widening briefly before a professional yet cold smile spread across her face. "Sure," she replied. "It's down the hall, third door on the right." Maya nodded in thanks, making her way down the corridor. Her footsteps echoed against the cold, silent floors as she became painfully aware of the eyes following her every movement. As she approached the office, a tall man in a white coat exited a nearby room. His graying hair and authoritative demeanor suggested he was a senior doctor. Maya's heart raced. Perhaps this would be her opportunity to build rapport. "Good morning, doctor," Maya greeted with a warm smile. "I'm Maya Daniels, the new nurse starting today. It's a pleasure to meet you." The doctor's piercing gray eyes assessed her without emotion. "Dr. Charles Grant," he replied curtly. "I trust you've been briefed on our procedures." Before Maya could answer, Dr. Grant continued. "We maintain high standards here at Sentinel Hills. I trust you'll meet them." Without waiting for a response, he walked past her, leaving Maya standing alone in the hallway. Her hand, still extended in a greeting, dropped slowly to her side. The encounter left her deflated, but Maya refused to let it discourage her. She took a deep breath and knocked on the head nurse's door. As Maya waited, her thoughts drifted back to nursing school, hearing her mother's words echo in her mind. "Maya, you're going to have to work twice as hard as everyone else, but don't you ever let them see you sweat. You come from a long line of strong women, and you have that same strength." Maya remembered the late-night study sessions, the grueling lab hours, and constantly feeling the need to prove herself. She recalled the dismissals from some professors and the whispers from her classmates, questioning whether she truly belonged. But Maya persevered, graduating at the top of her class and silencing her critics with her skill and determination. Now, standing in the halls of Sentinel Hills, she drew on those memories for strength. She had faced challenges before, and she would do so again. The head nurse opened the door, her stern expression revealing no warmth. "Miss Daniels, I presume?" she asked briskly. "Come in. We have a lot to cover, and I expect you to keep up." As Maya stepped inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that her new job would demand much more than just medical expertise. Beneath the sterile professionalism of the hospital, a storm was brewing. The rest of Maya's first day was a whirlwind of orientations, introductions, and paperwork. But as she moved through the hospital, it became clear that her colleagues were keeping their distance. Conversations around her dropped to whispers, and polite yet distant responses met her attempts at small talk. By the end of the day, Maya was mentally and emotionally exhausted. As she gathered her belongings from the locker room, she overheard two nurses speaking in hushed tones. "Did you see the new hire?" one whispered. "Yeah. I'm not sure what management was thinking. This place isn't really suited for someone like her," the other responded. Maya froze, her heart sinking. The initial coldness wasn't just first-day jitters, it was something far deeper. This wasn't just a new job. It was going to be a battle against prejudice and bias. Feeling the weight of the day settle heavily on her shoulders, Maya made her way to the bus stop. She pulled out her phone and called her mother, a familiar voice answering after 2 rings. "Maya, how was your first day?" her mother asked. Tears prickled at Maya's eyes as she fought to keep her composure. "It was rough, Mama. Really rough." Her mother's voice softened. "Maya, you've worked too hard to let anyone make you feel small. Remember where you come from. You're not just there for yourself, but for every young black girl who dreams of following in your footsteps." Maya's heart swelled with renewed strength. "Thanks, Mama," she whispered. "I'll remember." As she hung up, Maya noticed a sleek black BMW slowing down near the bus stop. Through the tinted windows, she caught a glimpse of Dr. Grant. Their eyes met briefly before he drove away. Maya squared her shoulders. She wasn't alone. With her family's strength behind her and her determination to prove her worth, she was ready to face the challenges ahead. In the following weeks, Maya's work environment grew increasingly difficult. The cold reception she received from her colleagues evolved into something more insidious. Despite her competence, Maya was consistently assigned the most challenging tasks. Dr. Grant, in particular, seemed intent on undermining her. "Nurse Daniels," he called out one day, his voice carrying across the bustling nurses' station. "I trust you're familiar with our protocols by now. We can't afford any mistakes." Maya met his gaze calmly. "Of course, Dr. Grant. I've reviewed everything thoroughly." Dr. Grant smirked. "We'll see," he muttered before walking away. No matter how well Maya performed, she couldn't shake the constant scrutiny. While her white colleagues received straightforward assignments, Maya was consistently given the toughest cases, including a particularly difficult patient named Mr. Thompson, known for his racist outbursts. One day a colleague approached her with a saccharine smile. "Maya, could you handle Mr. Thompson in room 306? He's been a bit difficult today." Maya nodded, knowing full well that difficult was an understatement. Bracing herself for the inevitable barrage of insults, Maya entered the room. "I told them I didn't want a black nurse in here," Mr. Thompson spat as soon as he saw her. Maya took a deep breath. "Mr. Thompson, I'm here to take care of you. I'll check your vitals and change your dressing." Despite the hateful words, Maya remained professional. She finished her tasks with precision, refusing to let his bigotry affect the quality of her care. When she stepped into the hallway, she found Dr. Grant waiting, a look of feigned concern on his face. "Everything all right, Nurse Daniels?" Maya answered evenly. "Mr. Thompson's vitals are stable, and his dressing has been changed." Dr. Grant smirked. "Well, let's hope you can maintain that level of composure. We wouldn't want any complaints." Meanwhile, the hospital was buzzing with the news of a VIP patient's arrival. Richard Maxwell, a well-known businessman, had suffered a skiing accident that left both his arms broken. Maya was assigned to his care. "Miss Daniels," Dr. Grant instructed her, "make sure Mr. Maxwell receives the utmost care." Maya approached Mr. Maxwell's room with trepidation. Unlike her previous patients, Mr. Maxwell greeted her with warmth and curiosity. As she adjusted his IV, he asked about her experience at the hospital. "It's been challenging, to say the least," Maya admitted cautiously. Mr. Maxwell's sharp eyes never left her face. "I see," he replied thoughtfully. "I've heard a lot about this hospital, and I look forward to experiencing its reputation firsthand." Over the next few days, Maya found herself drawn to Mr. Maxwell. He was intelligent, kind, and unlike the other patients, he treated her with respect. But one day, as she worked, she overheard a disturbing conversation outside his room. "I don't trust her with our VIP patient," one nurse whispered. "Who knows what she might do?" Maya's hands trembled. She had been dealing with this bias for weeks, but hearing her colleagues openly voice their distrust stung. "You all right, Miss Daniels?" Mr. Maxwell asked, noticing her tension. Forcing a smile, Maya responded, "Of course, Mr. Maxwell." But Mr. Maxwell wasn't fooled. "You know," he said, "a person's true character is..." shown in how they treat those they see as beneath them. Maya looked up, startled by the intensity of his words. Mr. Maxwell had been paying close attention to everything around him. One day, Maya was called into an emergency operation, assisting Dr. Grant and several senior staff members. The pressure was immense. With important hospital officials observing, everyone was on edge. As the surgery progressed, Maya noticed something alarming. Dr. Grant was about to make a serious mistake. "Dr. Grant," Maya said carefully, "I think it would be safer to approach from a different angle." The room fell silent. Dr. Grant glared at her, anger flashing in his eyes. But to everyone's surprise, he followed her suggestion, and it became clear her intervention had likely saved the patient's life. Afterward, Dr. Grant pulled her into a private room, seething with rage. "How dare you question my judgment?" he hissed. "You're here because of some diversity initiative, not because you belong in this hospital." Maya felt her heart pound, but before she could respond, a calm voice interrupted. "Dr. Grant," Richard Maxwell said, entering the room, "I think you've said enough." Dr. Grant turned pale. "Mr. Maxwell, There's no misunderstanding," Richard replied firmly. "I've seen enough. I'm the CEO of Global Health Partners, and I will not tolerate this behavior. This ends now." Richard Maxwell revealed his true identity as the CEO of a major healthcare corporation. His stay at Sentinel Hills had opened his eyes to the hospital's toxic culture, and he demanded an immediate overhaul, starting with Dr. Grant's suspension. He called for a full investigation into the hospital's discriminatory practices and placed Maya at the forefront of the newly formed Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Maya, once seen as an outsider, was now a leader for change. With Mr. Maxwell's backing, Sentinel Hills began to transform. Training sessions, policy changes, and a re-evaluation of the hospital's practices set the stage for a more inclusive and equitable environment. Though the road ahead was difficult, Maya faced it with determination. Her journey had been far from easy, but now she was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting for all those who would follow in her footsteps. With Sentinel Hills as a symbol of hope and change, Maya's story was far from over. It had only just begun.